Brain fog can affect concentration, executive function, decision making and memory. There are many possible causes like stress, lack of sleep, hormonal changes, medication and medical conditions. But if you always feel brain fog after certain meals, then it might be worth it to test your diet. Within your diet, there could be many possible causes. It could be an allergy, intolerance, overeating, eating the same things over and over. Maybe the problem involves refined carbohydrates, processed foods, trans fats, artificial sweetness, or maybe alcohol. According to healthline.com, the elimination diet is the gold standard for identifying allergies and intolerances. Essentially, the elimination diet is pretty simple. You prepare for it, you eliminate certain foods until symptoms disappear, you introduce them back one at a time, and you evaluate which foods you think might be triggering your symptoms. But this doesn't answer the question of which foods to eliminate, if now is the right time, and more, so let's get into a little more detail. The first phase is the preparation. First, you need to ask yourself, is it the right time for an elimination diet? Keep in mind that you need to be able to eliminate certain foods, track your symptoms and everything you eat rigorously, and possibly keep doing this for some weeks. So if you're really busy or traveling or want to eat out a lot, then now might not be the ideal time. But if you decide that now is the right time, then the first step is to contact your doctor to rule out other possible causes of your brain fog. Because if you have an allergy, then the symptoms can be potentially life-threatening. Next, you need to make a list of foods to avoid. But how do you know which foods to avoid and how many? If you don't have any idea about what might be triggering you, then you can either buy a food sensitivity test or spend some time tracking everything you eat, as well as any symptoms that might arise. But keep in mind that while symptoms usually arise within a few hours of eating the trigger food, it could be delayed by up to 48 hours, which would make it very hard to pinpoint. It's also worthwhile to know the most common triggers. For allergies, the big 8 is milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat and soybean. Some common food sensitivities are dairy, wheat, gluten, caffeine, salicylates, histamine, food maps, sulfites, fructose, artificial sweetness, colorings and flavorings. And in order to decide how many foods to eliminate, it's important to remember that there might be more than one food that is causing you trouble. And if you eliminate just one of them, then you will still experience symptoms and you have to do it all over again. On the other hand, eliminating too many foods is harder to adhere to, and you are at a bigger risk of creating nutritional deficiencies, which might cause new symptoms to occur. So choosing which foods to avoid is a balancing act. Once you know what to eliminate, write down all things that contain that thing. For example, if gluten is on your list, then write down all things that contain gluten. It's also important to make a list of what you're going to eat instead, to make sure that you're prepared and aren't going to face any nutritional deficiencies. At last, you'll want to make a plan for the order in which you will reintroduce the foods you have eliminated. Here you can prioritize starting with the foods you missed the most healthy ones, or the ones you think are the least likely to cause you trouble. You can try different forms of the same food separately, for example trying the white part and yellow part of an egg separately. It can also be a good idea to try pure forms of your trigger food, like pure wheat, if you think that wheat might be your trigger. The next phase is the elimination. Here you remove all the foods from your list for 2 to 4 weeks and write down if you notice any symptoms still occurring. You need to have been completely symptom-free for 5 days before moving on to the next phase. If you haven't been symptom-free for at least 5 days at the end of the 2 to 4 weeks, then consider removing other foods and doing 2 to 4 additional weeks. But be aware that you could have created a nutritional deficiency because of the foods you eliminated, and that might be why you are still experiencing symptoms. The next phase is the reintroduction. Here you introduce one food at a time and track any symptoms that might occur. You should wait 3 to 7 days before introducing a new food, since it can take 48 hours for symptoms to occur, and also because you might be able to tolerate some amount of your trigger foods. If you experience symptoms but are unsure if the food you reintroduced was the trigger, then wait 5 days until you don't have any symptoms and try reintroducing the food again. But if you reintroduce some food and are certain that the food is the culprit, then wait with introducing the next food until you don't experience any symptoms anymore. The last phase is the evaluation. Now you should evaluate how certain you feel that you found your trigger foods. If you are uncertain about a few of the foods, then you might run the experiment again with those foods. Also remember that you might be able to handle some amount of your trigger foods, and your sensitivity to those foods can change over time. If you choose to eliminate some foods entirely, then it can be worthwhile to find some replacement foods to make sure you still get all the nutrients you need. If you want to have more quick insights on how to live a good life, then remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos come out.